Hello, I am Delise Ledyard, and I'm going to be talking about differentiation. How does this concept relate to relationships and the work we do in counseling? So let's start with the definition. Differentiation is the active, ongoing process of defining self, revealing self, clarifying boundaries, and managing the anxiety that comes from risking either greater intimacy or potential separation. I find that differentiation is something that couples are often challenged by because of these fears associated with separation and intimacy, which really boils down to losing a connection and having to face the world by yourself, or fears of being closer. Greater intimacy can mean feeling vulnerable when someone knows you more deeply. Differentiation is a stage in relationships that happens as couples become more complex to one another. And as you come out of the pink haze of what we might call the honeymoon phase, it is a stage that is a very important one to navigate, and one that as a couple you will probably find yourself revisiting. It's important because it is the basis of accepting each other as you are, not as you want each other to be. At the beginning of relationships, we tend to see each other with this filter of who we are looking for. You see your partner in the ways in which they fit with you, the ways in which they're similar. This is how we form attachments. As the relationship matures, you learn more about your partner. And sometimes the things that you learn don't fit that perfect picture. So how do we deal with that? In many ways, this is the crux of the process of differentiation. How can we continue to connect, understand, and trust someone when differences and conflict emerge? I find that sometimes people misunderstand differentiation as a process of independence, often because at this time one or both partners tend to need more space around them from each other. Kind of do your own thing, have time to yourselves, and it can feel like wanting more independence from each other. However, independence is our ability to take care of ourselves, that we don't need to rely on anyone else. Independence can be important to the process of differentiation. The more we're aware of ourselves, the better, and independence certainly adds to a feeling of being capable. But you can be very independent and not develop differentiation. So differentiation is essentially about becoming more fully who you are in connection with your partner. It is a relationship process, whereas gaining independence isn't necessarily that. Differentiation is about including both of you and your uniqueness into the relationship. At this time, in a relationship, there are important skills that we develop involving differentiation of self and differentiation of the other. Let's talk about differentiation of self, which is how we communicate and express what is happening to ourselves, to our partner. There are some things that come into this. In order to communicate our experience, we need to develop awareness of our experience, and we need to take time to reflect and focus and slow down rather than just react, which tends to come from an unconscious place. And how we express ourselves to our partner is the other part of differentiation of self. We need to learn to express ourselves without emotional reactivity or blaming, and to resist trying to prove that our perspective is the right one. If we think we are right, there is a tendency to lecture and be motivated by a need to have our partner agree with us. And then at the other end of the spectrum, if we have a tendency to try to please others and our partner, if our focus is on what they might want to hear, it can get in the way of developing an open and honest relationship. So then, differentiation of the other is how we take in the experience of our partner, understanding what is going on for them. It may come as no surprise that the main skill here is in listening, and we all know that this is a lot more difficult than it seems. And it's difficult because we have to put ourselves aside temporarily to really listen and deal with our internal processes that may be getting in the way of us listening. We need to learn to calm reactions and emotions that have become activated as we listen to our partner. Especially at times of conflict, there's a tendency to take what we hear personally. These internal reactions get in the way of us being curious about our partner's experience. Secondly, we may have a tendency to want to fix the situation and find solutions that also prevent us from really first understanding. We think we know what is going on with our partner, we've heard it before, and we've formed our conclusions, which means we are not inquiring further or being curious. Even with a conversation you have had many times before with your partner, there is always the possibility of something new to emerge, and it often does if we allow ourselves to be open to it. So we can see that this process in relationships can be a very challenging time. And it's challenging because at the root of it all is a fear of being abandoned, which tends to become activated when conflict and difference come up in relationships. Conflict can bring up fears of being rejected and the relationship ending. We may know that we can survive on our own, but actually our nervous system and our instincts know that we are vulnerable on our own. We do a lot better with people around us to rely on. On top of this, to separate from someone we love is very painful, and who wants to face all that loss? So when this is happening, we get scared, and we'll do whatever we can to get away from those feelings. At this stage of the relationship, we have to go against our nature to develop differentiation. The irony is that if we do, we are more likely to end up with a stronger foundation to the relationship and a deeper connection. So here are a few ways in which couples typically tend to avoid differentiation. Avoiding conflict is a big one, and at the heart of it. We might just not talk about our concerns with each other, or resentments, or disagree. We learn to not focus on our inner experience, and we become numb and shut down. Over time, the relationship can lose the life and energy it may have had at the beginning. Couples who avoid conflict may have come to believe that they don't have any, and that actually this is a good thing. If there is conflict and difference, one partner might tend to be compliant in order to not fully sort through the conflict, or be focused on trying to please their partner, which ends in their own desires getting put aside. Then there are couples who argue all the time but never seem to resolve anything because they are trying to win and be right. When we focus on there being a right and a wrong, what this means is that there is only one perspective that can be validated or understood. Essentially, it's almost like the couple are saying there is only one person allowed in this relationship, and each partner is trying to coerce the other to be like them so that they are validated and can feel connected through being the same. This is the other side of avoiding conflict, even though it seems that there's so much with all the arguing. You may see yourselves in some of the things I'm saying here about differentiation. In counseling, we can go into these aspects of your relationship and help you to move more easily through this process. To make an appointment or chat further, please give me a call, or you can book directly online through the online booking. I look forward to working with you.